I keep having this reoccurring dream in which I murder my entire family in cold blood. The problem is, when I wake up, I am always in an insane asylum.
Are you a witch? Those were the last words I heard before they threw me in that lake.
Lunch Date by Ramuerto. Your girlfriend made you breakfast, and it was the most delicious meal you've ever had. After you thank her, she promises to cook your other leg for dinner.
After years of putting up with my nagging husband, I decided he had to go. So last night, I grabbed a hammer and proceeded to bash his face in. I guess he won't be nagging me anymore. While it is true that you eventually get used to the smell, you don't get used to the doctor's blade cutting through your flesh as you lie, helpless.
I had a dream about you last night. What is all this blood everywhere?
My Special Friend, written and narrated by Dexter. No one else has ever been able to see my special friend, and I'm the only one that can hear them. I am so proud of the soundproofing job I did in my basement.
The world was thrilled with the announcement that the first mission to Mars would be an all-female crew. 1 year later, the world was terrified when they all returned pregnant. I noticed several things going missing from my house, so I put up some small cameras. I ran back the footage and watched in horror as I saw an old, frail woman emerge from my attic space. An old woman in a hooded cloak stood motionless at the end of my bed, her presence filling me with dread.
This 2-sentence horror story was written and narrated by me, Mia Mina. Surrounded by my seated family, the table was filled with food for the holiday meal. As I stood at the head beside my husband, I thought of how alive they all looked after 3 months dead.
Watched. Written and narrated by 242 from 242 Reads. I always felt like someone was watching me in my house. I walked out of the shower to discover my dog's mutilated corpse with a love heart carved into its skin.
Chill ran down my spine as I heard a faint laughter coming from outside. I froze in fear as I watched the window open and they started to come in. Imagine my surprise today when my daughter came home from school. Both her and my husband were killed in a plane crash a year ago.
My Warm, Safe Bed. Written and narrated by the Savage Patch Kid. I didn't want to get out of bed today. I just felt so warm and safe underneath my blanket. Besides, pretending to be asleep is the only thing protecting me from whatever is lurking in the corner of my bedroom right now.
Come on, motherfucker! Get it over with! I ain't got all day, I said to the pencil-thin man beside my gurney. Yes, of course. But before we begin, would you prefer to be conscious or unconscious during the procedure? He replied calmly.
I was tired and stressed from work when I heard my son scream from his bedroom. Annoyed, I strode in, held him tight, and shoved a knife into his heart.
The doll, with her glassy eyes fixed on me, whispered that she would protect me from the monster lurking under my bed. As I drifted off to sleep, I heard a muffled scream from beneath the mattress, followed by the doll's cold, satisfied laughter.
Crossing Fun. Written and narrated by Quipster Puck. I signaled to the family on the curb that they could cross in front of me. I laughed as I heard the thumps against the car as I pushed the accelerator to the floor.
Nursery Rhyme by P.A. Nightmares, performed by Musey of Musey's Modern Dreadfuls. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but my teeth will still exsanguinate you completely.
Every night I check under the bed for monsters. Tonight was no different. As I peer under the bed, 2 eyes stare back at me. Good night, Mom.
After a long day at work, I think it's time to relax with a good movie and a snack of fresh eyeballs. I enjoy their screams of pain. Sweet music to my ears. I just love hosting luncheons after a funeral. I just adore watching my guests eating their loved ones.
The Secret, written and narrated by Timothy Duran. You do not know me, you have not heard of me, you cannot find me, for I hunt you. When I do finally catch you and drain the life from you, you will know my secret.
As I slid the knife along my skin, I couldn't help but smile. It wasn't my skin just yet, but I was happy knowing that it would be soon enough. It's always nice to see my husband smile whenever I come home from a long day of work. It'd be even nicer if I knew where the rest of him was. My husband's been mouthing the words, "Where is it?" over and over for the last several hours. I didn't know a severed head could still move for so long, or whether it'll taste just as good as the rest of him. My baby hasn't stopped screaming and crying ever since I was discharged from the hospital. I visit his grave and try to coax him to stop, but it only just makes him scream louder.
The chain rattled as I continued my work. If he would stop thrashing around, I could harvest his organs a lot quicker. The cracking sounds were deafening. I love feeding my victims through industrial crushers. A chill ran down my spine as I heard a faint laughter coming from outside my window. I was frozen in fear, unable to move, as someone climbed through.
Depraved laughter is all I can hear, as I fade into darkness from this searing pain, dismembered and tortured beyond belief, injected with drugs to keep me awake.
It has been 6 days. My phone pinged, counting my days of sobriety. It's strange just how gruesomely slow time has passed since my wife died of blunt force trauma. As I held my cat in my arms for the last time, I think back on the day of hearing the diagnosis. I just hope she can find a good owner once my cancer takes me.
She was a fan of the circus, so I made her soul a permanent part of the act.
The other physicists and I cheered as our first large-scale wormhole opened. Only after the first alien spacecraft came through did we realize our mistake.
My daughter cries for me every night. I get up and tuck her in, kiss her on the cheek, and wait for her to fall back asleep. I've been doing this for the last year. Tomorrow is the anniversary of her death. Her grave can use some fresh flowers.
The Fear of Being Left Out, written and narrated by Dr. Dark. I have come to realize the perils of the fear of being left out. While normal human beings are going about living their lives, on the other hand there is me, locked up by my abusive parents in the attic for days, made to starve to death, finally on the brink of meeting my maker.
As the sounds of banging became more frantic, I just chuckled to myself. The muffled screams keeping me company as I buried my wife alive.
When I looked up from my book, I saw a pale face staring at me from the corner of the room. My son was standing in the darkness holding a knife stained with my husband's blood.
I was told not to take the subway tonight, but when I felt his finger burn away the flesh on the back of my right hand, I could see in my mind's eye not the devil, but the silhouette of a man. The man whose presence murdered my family.
Beneath the Bed by Teestache. When I was younger, I had killed the monster that had lived beneath my bed. I see now. It only existed to protect me from something much worse.
The Nukes, written by the sleeping Wendigo. They told me to put the codes in. What they did not tell me was it was for the Nukes.
A cold chill ran down my spine as I heard a faint laughter coming from outside my window. I was frozen in fear, unable to move as someone climbed through.
Heart attacks are scary. The good news is, I don't have a heart.
I always cry in despair when I hear my son's voice say, "Watch this, Dad!" As if the guilt wasn't bad enough that I wasn't quick enough to stop him from jumping. Now his spirit won't let me forget either.
When I was younger, I used to run down the hallway at night because I felt like someone was following me. When my family moved out and left me behind, I realized I wasn't the one being followed. I hate what I see every time I look in the mirror. Seeing nothing there always makes me feel like I don't exist.
Her Exotic Farm, written by King of the Canadian Hill. When I went to her farm, she told me that some of her pets were exotic. I didn't know to what extent until her ranch hands turned into werewolves.
People said that a serial killer once plagued their small town, then one day disappeared. This time, I'm back to break my record.
I began to wonder what it was about my boyfriend that just sat odd in my mind. It was only a month after we started dating that I noticed he hadn't blinked the whole time. Jane's mother taught her how to sew quilts when she was young. She later discovered that those skills work just as well on human skin.
The wind whispered through the trees, and I felt a hand grab my shoulder. I turned around, coming face to face with my dead wife.
My speed and precision with a knife is legendary. I'm sure my wife would agree, if I wasn't packing her in freezer bags right now.
Tortured. Written by As the Noose Tightens, and narrated by Lone Wolf. I hear the cracking as I continue to turn the crank. The woman is ceaselessly wailing when the chains finally separate her bones and joints.
I'm calling to find out if I can get a discount on the body pillow your store sells on your website, but your associates keep hanging up on me. I wanted to know if I sent you my ex-boyfriend's skin instead of your company using its own material, if it'll be cheaper.
Distortion by Josie Kitty. My reflection ripples, and as I try to rationalize this, I suddenly realize the mirror is a puddle of water. While bound with a gun to my head, the raindrops muffle their interrogating questions. Yet, mysteriously, My reflection puts her fingers to her lips and whispers, "Shh."
While scrolling through old photos on my phone, I came across a picture of myself sleeping in my bed. Confused and disturbed, I checked the timestamp, only to realize that the photo was taken at 3 a.m. while I was home alone.
As the sounds of the banging became more frantic, I just chuckled to myself. The muffled screams kept me company as I buried my wife alive.
Cleanliness by AZAZEL CODEX. It's getting hard to keep things clean. The trash piling up, rats everywhere. And most of all, these damn insects laying their eggs on me, forcing me to tear pieces of my rotting flesh off.
Madame Raven, 2-sentence story by me. There is no feeling in this world like getting into your car at the end of a long shift and cranking up the volume and singing along at your highest volume until you feel the knife at your throat from the man in the back seat. So quote this Raven.
The last man on Earth sat in his room waiting to die. There was a knock at the door.
I noticed several things going missing from my house, so I put up some small cameras. I ran back the footage and watched in horror as I saw an old, frail woman emerge from my attic space.
Rolling over in bed, I cuddled next to my husband. That's when I saw him standing at the foot of our bed, holding a gun.